This is Akashvani Jalandhar. Good evening and welcome, dear listeners. Today's talk centers on the practice of clear thinking, a vital art in today's fast-moving world, presented by Mr. Dildar Singh.
Anyone who has navigated a winter morning in the plains of North India understands the nature of a dense white fog. You step out of your door and the world is muffled. The trees, the roads, the horizon, everything loses its shape. It obscures the path ahead and makes familiar surroundings feel disoriented. But eventually, the sun rises. The mist is no more, and suddenly the landscape regains its sharp, defined edges. Today, I wish to discuss a different kind of fog. It is an internal one. We live in an era characterized by an unprecedented information glut. From the moment we wake up, our screens and speakers bombard us with a relentless stream of data, opinions, and endless commentary. Never before in human history has so much information been so readily available. Yet, a wealth of data does not necessarily equate to a clarity of thought. In fact, it often thickens the fog. As academicians, as students, and as citizens, we must distinguish between the mere accumulation of facts and the rigorous craft of thinking. Mahatma Gandhi titled his autobiography My Experiments with Truth. Today, perhaps we need to embark on a similar endeavor, our own experiments with clarity. We must test our thoughts and question our assumptions as we navigate this noisy world. To think clearly, we must first master the fundamentals. We are often in a rush to tackle the most complex arguments of our time, but in doing so, we skip the basics. In their book, The 5 Elements of Effective Thinking, authors Edward Berger and Michael Starbird recount a story involving a trumpet player and teacher, Tony Plug. During a master class for accomplished students, each musician performed incredibly difficult, sophisticated pieces. They played wonderfully. Plug listened politely, offering advice on technique, but then he shifted gears. He asked these advanced players to put aside their complex music and perform a basic beginner's warm-up exercise, a simple sequence of notes. When the students played these simple notes, it sounded childish. The notes lacked depth. Then Tony Plug picked up his own trumpet. He played that exact simple phrase, but when he played it, it was exquisite. Each note possessed a rich, delightful sound. The contrast was startling. The lesson is profound. The difference between a master and a student lies in a deep understanding of the most basic foundations. In our intellectual lives, clarity is often lost because we rush toward complex opinions before we have mastered the simple notes of logic. We must ask, what do I actually know? What is the core of this argument? However, our pursuit of these fundamentals is often thwarted by our own perception. The philosopher Bertrand Russell, in his 1912 work, The Problems of Philosophy, poses a haunting question. Is there any knowledge in the world which is so certain that no reasonable man could doubt it? This question, which at first sight might not seem difficult, is really one of the most difficult that can be asked. When we have realized the obstacles in the way of a straightforward and confident answer, we shall be well launched on the study of philosophy, for philosophy is merely the attempt to answer such ultimate questions, not carelessly and dogmatically, as we do in our ordinary life and even in our sciences, but critically, after exploring all that makes such questions puzzling and after realizing all the vagueness and confusion that underlie our ordinary ideas. Russell argues that we often hold our ideas carelessly and dogmatically, failing to realize the confusion that underlies our ordinary notions. The dogmatism is reinforced by a tendency to translate the world into a version of reality that is comfortable for us. In his History of Western Philosophy, Russell warns that when we listen to someone, we often unconsciously translate what we hear into something we can understand. We see this today in our digital discourse. We rarely listen to understand, we listen to translate. When we hear an argument we disagree with, we twist the words to fit our existing biases. The philosopher Ludwig Wittgenstein identified a similar philosophical disease. He noted that we often suffer from a one-sided diet of examples, feeding our minds only the information that confirms what we already believe. To achieve clarity, we must consciously diversify this diet. This requires a great deal of intellectual humility. It requires us to admit that we might be wrong. The poet Khalil Gibran, in his masterpiece The Prophet, offers a piece of advice for the seeker of clarity. He says, "Say not, I have found the truth, but rather, I have found a truth." This subtle shift in language is vital. When we claim to have the truth, we close our minds. When we acknowledge that we have found our truth, we remain open to the perspectives of others. This is the essence of what Bertrand Russell meant when he suggested we hang a question mark on the things we have long taken for granted. Hanging a question mark does not mean we must believe in nothing. Rather, it is a healthy routine to keep our minds sharp. It is the act of testing our certainties to see if they hold up under the light of reason. Clear thinking ultimately is about clearing away the mental clutter. It requires us to strip away the noise of the crowd and the urge to be instantly right. It requires solitude, a commodity that is increasingly rare today. We must carve out quiet moments to sit with our thoughts unbothered by the notifications on our screens. This clarity of mind is not just an academic goal, it is a moral one. We find its most perfect expression in the words of Rabindranath Tagore. In his Gitanjali, he envisioned a world where the mind is without fear and the head is held high, where knowledge is free, where the world has not been broken up into fragments by narrow domestic walls, where words come out from the depth of truth, where tireless striving stretches its arms towards perfection, where the clear stream of reason has not lost its way into the dreary desert sand of dead habit, where the mind is led forward by thee into ever-widening thought and action, into that heaven of freedom. My Father, let my country awake. Tagore's vision reminds us that when we allow our minds to be broken into fragments by narrow domestic walls, the walls of bias, prejudice, and ego, we lose our ability to see the world clearly. Clarity only arrives when our words and thoughts come out from the depth of truth, unburdened by the need to conform to the crowd. As I conclude this talk today, I invite you to consider your own mental habits. Clarity is not a final destination, it is a discipline that we must practice daily. Tonight, I encourage you to begin your own experiment. Take one belief you hold with absolute certainty. In the spirit of Russell and Gibran, subject it to the question mark. Try to argue against yourself. Look for the simple notes within your complex arguments. It may feel uncomfortable, much like practicing a beginner's scale when you want to play a symphony. But by mastering these basics, we ensure that when the fog of information eventually clears, we are standing on a foundation that is firm, honest, and true.
You were listening to a talk by Mr. Dildar Singh. The topic was Practice of Clear Thinking. Please wait for our next program.